Trust me.
Prosku. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Going On Daily. I'm your host, Becky, and I am here with Mr. Martin. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, Becky, and you?
Doing great. It is
Okay.
an almost Christmas episode of Going On Daily. Almost
Creeping,
Christmas. There are
creeping up
some
into
Christmas
the holiday.
themes.
Yes.
Yes, there are
I
definitely some Christmas themes today, so I'm excited to get into that.
Great. Me too.
And you can see the graphics. Let's see, which way am I pointing? Down here are a little
Mhm.
different. We've got Santa here, and throughout the show, Captain Ron has made all kinds of Christmas graphics. So we're really getting into the Oh,
Terrific.
look at that.
Look at the
We're really
holly.
getting into
So
the
nice.
festive spirit today.
I
I
like
love
it.
it.
I
I
that Santa
I
is
think it's
so
great.
cool by the sun. I'd leave it year round, but that's me. That's how cool that is.
Right. Or like change it to whatever festivities are going
Sure.
on in the air, like a little Easter bunny or we're not religious, so maybe not like a cross, but you know what I'm saying, like different
Mhm.
holidays,
Sure.
different little guy. So if you are checking us out, you might be on Facebook, which is RI Broadcasting. You might be on YouTube, which is Rhode Island Broadcasting. Of course, Twitch, where we get all kinds of viewers, is RI_broadcasting. Definitely check us out there. And of course, support the show with bits. And you can come on over to Patreon to get yourself a mug or a shirt or a sticker or something at RI Broadcasting. So keep the show going. We would love to see your support on any of these social medias. Of course, we have all kinds. We have TikTok, we've got Kick, we've got, I don't even know, all the ones. MySpace, we were talking about that. I don't think MySpace actually
MySpace.
exists,
It
but
might
we were
still
talking about it.
exist. Oh my
We were
God. I'm like,
we were saying come be friends with Going On Daily and also Tom from MySpace. Actually, I think Tom sold. So apparently we were talking about it, Ron and I, that it might still be a thing. MeWe, what is this? MeWe at ribroadcasting.45. Someone knows what it is, so go check us out there.
okay.
So yeah, very interesting show today. Why don't you start us off talking about some Italian Christmas Eve
Sure.
stuff?
Well, I've
Who's in
spoken a lot
bracket?
about I've spoken a lot about this on my podcast. I wish I were a
Okay, of
prosciutto because it's a Christmas season. But for this audience,
course.
yeah, I'd love to share it. So, if
Yes.
if you're Italian or Italian American, Christmas Eve is really the central part of the Christmas celebration.
Oh,
Christmas Eve
really?
leading into
Interesting.
Christmas, midnight into Christmas, and that's not to say Christmas is not celebrated, but from this perspective, the show is Christmas Eve. That is the day. It is the big
That's the day.
party. It was growing up for me. It was the best day of the year. Nothing came close
Same.
to it. Yeah, and we would get together with my mom's family, my grandparents, my mom, her siblings, and all of their families, i.e., my
Mhm.
cousins, for the best celebration you could ever ever imagine. And they called it. They referred to it colloquially as the feast. And
The
eventually,
feast. Okay.
as we got older, we sort of call it La Vigile, which meant for the vigil, referring to the Christmas vigil, the night before or the night of Christ's birth, leading up to that. But when I was 40
Interesting.
years old or so, I heard a term I had never heard before, and it's in wide use now. Perhaps you've heard it too, called the Night of the Seven Fishes.
No,
Okay. It,
never. No.
all right. It's common. It's commonplace now in the United States, and it refers to Christmas Eve. But I remember it was in my 40s when someone asked me, "Oh, I guess you guys do the Night of the Seven Fishes," and I had no
Hmm.
idea what my friend was talking about. and I guess you don't either. But
No.
tradition dictates that on Christmas Eve, in the Italian home, you have to have 7 fishes. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, we never called it that, but at our Christmas Eve feast, there is plenty of seafood. I had to do a count in my in my head. Do we have
Oh,
seven? Where,
interesting.
you know? And I sort of came to seven, but seafood is the staple of the dinner. And
Hmm.
you have it in the side dishes and the main course. Seafood abounds. But truth be told, there is no dictate. You can have seven, you can have less than seven, you can have more than seven. This is kind of a construct that no one can exactly pinpoint, but let's say late 20th century, probably Northeast America. But
Mhm.
but we did a version of that because there was lots of seafood, and the celebration was the family would gather, we would be dressed up. It was very festive and fancy, and I got to see all my cousins, and we get to play and do kid things
Hmm.
together and laugh. And then there would be all the food, which was a formal multi-course dinner, but so many things to snack on, baked goods. In my family, my grandmother made pizzelles, which is a kind of a wafer cookie.
Yum.
Kind of hard to come by commercially back in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, but now bakeries make them all the time. My grandmother made these
Hmm.
cookies with an iron, handheld iron that she had to make one at a time
No way.
over the stove.
Wow.
Yeah. And she made dozens of them because she had enough for us to have everyone, the whole family, have a bunch. And then we all had to
Wow.
take some home. So she was making pizzelles for hours and hours and hours.
Crazy.
By the way, I have her pizzelle iron. It came down to me because it went to my mother.
Amazing.
And mom gave it to me. So I'm learning. I'm getting better, but I'm no
You better
expert.
not butcher that tradition, Martin.
No, well, fortunately, my aunt also has her own pizzelle iron, and she's very good at making them. So it's still, the tradition is still in the family. Pizzelles, the way we make them, very mild flavor, a little sweet, not too
Ooh.
sweet, but flavored with anise. Very
Oh,
subtle, very subtle.
okay. I'm trying to show
Commercial,
a picture of it,
yeah.
but it's not working. Yeah, it looks
Typically,
delicious.
well, typically in stores, commercially, they're round. They look like
Right.
doilies. But from my grandmother's waffle iron, they're sort of diamond shaped.
Oh, fun.
And we flavor, again, anise was our flavor, but
Mm.
they're made with vanilla, chocolate, all sorts of stuff. My grandmother would also make these cookies called cavajunes, which look like raviolis, but they
Oh,
were
yum.
a dough stuffed with a grape jam, and she would make the grape jam herself. And there'd be things in it like bitter chocolate, cinnamon, the grapes, and they're delicious. You only make them at Christmas time. And my aunt makes them. She's continued the tradition too. And my cousin also makes them now with cranberries, but a little New England twist
Oh
on.
my gosh.
So Cavajunes were so good. Funny story that after my parents divorced, I was an adult. My dad knew I was going to Christmas Eve dinner with my mom's family, and he said, if you can, could you pinch me some Cavajunes?" And I'm like, "Well, this is the cost of divorce, my friend.
Right.
When
You can't have your cake
you,
and eat it too,
right,
Dad.
you don't get the
Can't
Cavajunes
have your
for
cabajunes
right."
and a divorce.
But I did say, "All right,
That's
have you been
hilarious.
good this year? Have you been good? If you behave yourself, maybe Santa will get a Cavajun for you." But and then I don't want to spend too much more time on it, but there was this marvelous multi-course dinner, all sorts of snacks. Oh, we make fried dough. We call it crispelle. And at Italian
Hmm.
feast, you would see this maybe with powdered sugar, but at Christmas time, they would just be made with salt, or some would be stuffed by bacala, codfish. And so some would be
Oh.
stuffed with the fish, and some would be plain. I prefer the plain. But all this great food. And then after dinner, we would play tombola, which is a type of bingo or lotto game. And my grandfather would call the numbers, and each number had a little Italian nickname. Number 88 was Occhio Deo, meaning God's eyes or God's eyes glasses. 69 was called Voda Vod, and that was rife with double or triple entendre that the children didn't get, but it was all very genteel, and everyone would just laugh. It's
I
a
love
funny
that.
number. It's just a funny number. All right, but we would
That's
play
hilarious.
for pennies, and then we would sing Christmas carols for a good half hour. My mom would
Wow.
play piano, and then eventually my grandmother would play piano, and we would sing Anglican Christmas carols that we know,
Mhm.
secular and religious. And then we would sing
Mhm.
some Italian Christmas carols, the most famous being Tu scendi della stella, you were born of the stars. And that's been covered by
Wow.
a lot of famous singers. And it's still a popular, beautiful, beautiful melody and beautiful Christmas carol. And then after all of that, it's late at night. Then we open presents. And of course, we kids were like, football players, before the game, all drugged
Mhm.
up, ready to get to the gridiron. We're like, can we open the presents? Can we open the presents? Finally,
Aw.
maybe 10, 11 o'clock, we get to the presents.
Wow.
And then it was just a wonderful night, full of love and fun. But the secret to it is really having people like my grandparents and now my aunt
Mm.
and cousins are willing to prepare for days, if not weeks,
Mm.
to make all
Right.
the food, to make sure the presepio, the manger scene is there for us to look on, that there's things for us to nosh on besides the main dinner, and that the
Wow.
atmosphere is fun and relaxed and inviting. And that
Mhm.
rather than pressure. So we always had a great time, and we still do. I've been
That
doing this.
sounds so awesome. What
It is.
a cool tradition. I mean, uh, I'm Canadian. My dad's from England. His family's from England, but for majority's sake, most of my family is Canadian. So the
Sure.
thing about Canada, and like, there's not a lot of tradition here. Yes, there are lots of cultures, but like, I feel like tradition is lost here. I don't know a lot of people who do anything
Mm.
extravagant like this. Maybe there's a lot of Ukrainian people where I live, so maybe they have a little bit more tradition, but certainly in my family there are no traditions for any Christmas. We just get together and eat and open presents, and that's kind of it.
Yeah,
Go to
and that's
church.
nice too. If you're together
It's
and you're
fine.
enjoying that,
Yeah.
that's fine. I think with my grandparents, my maternal grandmother was born in the States. Her parents came from Italy. My grandfather
Mhm.
came from Italy. It was important for them to do the things they did as kids,
Yes.
and so it was
I love
very
that.
vivid. I'm not that far away, but for me and my cousins, we had so much fun. It's not even an obligation. Well, we got to keep the tradition going. It's sort of like, well, why wouldn't you keep doing this wonderful,
Right.
endorphin rush of a time where we get to be together and laugh and have fun,
Yes.
and so we do, and
So
whatever that is, yeah.
what would you do on Christmas Day then, since all the excitement happened the day
Right.
day
Well,
before?
Christmas Day, we'd go to church,
Okay.
Santa
Okay.
Claus came, that was fun. We'd go to church, and
Mhm.
then we'd see my mom's parents again briefly, but then we'd have to go see
Mhm.
my dad's parents, where we had a nice dinner. But it was
Mhm.
interesting. In my dad's family, it was not as joyful. Let's just say that there was a
Oh,
lot of food. There
interesting.
was there was a lot of food there, and no seafood. The seafood is Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day you'll have a roast of some kind. There'll be
Right.
a lasagna, probably pasta,
Lasagna.
meatballs. I know,
I
but
guess that makes sense. It's an
yeah,
Italian family.
yeah, but the
Hilarious.
seafood was Christmas Eve. So,
Mm.
it's not that it was bad, it was just less. The pinnacle
Right.
really was, Christmas Eve, and then Christmas was a lovely footnote, and you need that part, you need that half of the celebration for sure, but the
Yes.
highlight was always Christmas Eve.
Oh, that I love that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Like I said, we don't have a lot of tradition. My mom makes the same meal for Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and to me, I'm like, "Make something new. Like, let's try something different."
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like, "No, no, we don't veer from turkey and sweet potatoes and cranberries and Brussels sprouts and mashed potatoes." Like, "Yeah, we do." So this year, she's actually making a turkey casserole, which is gonna be weird. It's got, like, potato, stuffing, turkey, cranberry, gravy layer.
yum.
I'm making salad, which we have never had for Christmas before, um, and pierogies. Not that we're Ukrainian or anything like that, but pierogies are delicious.
They're delicious. Yeah,
And so I'm just trying to mix it up. I remember one day in high school, I went over to my best friend's house for Christmas, which again, we weren't allowed to do. We had to be at home for Christmas, and that was it.
yeah,
We weren't allowed to go anywhere. It was like you open your presents and you're at home with your mom and dad, and that's it.
right.
And so I went over to a friend's house in at grade 11 or 12, and her family just had like chicken and buns and like this ramen noodle salad. And I was like, my mind was blown. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have turkey and mashed potatoes today on
Right.
Christmas Day?
Isn't it mandated by law? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And I remember one year after I had, I think just my first daughter, I had my parents over and my ex-husband's parents, and I made chicken, and I made it sort of like chicken cordon bleu style, where I pounded it, I rolled it with, I put stuffing on the inside, and then I breaded it, and then I baked it. And I remember my mom was like, "This is not Christmas. This isn't a Christmas meal." Like, you know what? This is how other people do Christmas.
Right.
So, yeah, I love this. Maybe one year we'll do an Italian Christmas, even though we're not Italian. I did one of those ancestry things, and I was like, I'm going to be Italian because my grandpa's name was Frank, and he was like real tanned, and he had this like little dark. He just looked like an Italian guy.
That's all
And for
the
years,
evidence
I'd
I need. Okay, I'm convinced.
exactly Frank,
You're in.
Frankie, Giuseppe. That's what we always called him.
Uh,
And I was like, I better have Italian. So when I did that DNA test, I think it said 3% Italian, and I was like, oh, I knew it.
yes.
So
Psych. Yeah.
right. So I'm like, we're gonna take that next Christmas
Next year,
Eve,
run with
and
it.
I want to do the seven fishes. I want to do the singing, the carols, the games. I love it.
Okay. Well, call if you can probably find lots of recipes online, but if you want some menu ideas, ring me up. And
I will.
it's a lot of seafood. It's a lot. It takes
I love
time.
seafood. I'm
Good.
into it. I mean,
You'll
I'm
love
in
it.
landlocked Alberta where there's not a lot of great seafood, but I mean, we can still get some, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah,
That
bravo,
sounds
bravo.
awesome.
All right.
Brava. So, speaking of Christmas traditions,
Mm.
I wanted to look up, well, I just wanted to look up some Christmas traditions. I've done one before, a segment on here where we're doing Christmas. Uh, hold on. Danny's cowboy. She's cute. Is she single? I'm not. Thank you, though. That's very
You are
nice.
cute. You may not single.
Thank you so much. I wanted to look up Christmas traditions,
Okay.
but I thought, let's look up creepy Christmas traditions because
Okay.
a lot of what I've read, it comes from a very pagan origin.
Oh, for sure.
And which is making me think, like, I've heard, oh, Christmas is pagan, whatever. It's not Christian, it's pagan. And the more I read about it, like all these cultures around the world really do have some pagan roots in their Christmas
Oh,
celebrating. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I've screenshotted a few. I may go through all of them, but I just thought these were super creepy. So comes from France of the Alsace region. Hans Trapp was said to be a rich, cruel man who lived in that region of France. He was a devil worshiper, of course, because everything is pagan here.
Right.
He would
Right.
do anything to become more rich and powerful. Eventually, he was excommunicated, had to live in the forest where he became a cannibal, would go out on Christmas dressed as a scarecrow, as if that's not scary enough,
Hmm.
trying to kidnap and eat bad children. Oh, I'm sorry, what? This
Okay.
is the story they tell people in France. Terrifying. Terrifying. Okay, here's a German tradition, and it seems like a lot of them come from Germany. So I don't know if German parents just like to mess with their kids or what, but this is the story of Belsnickel. And if you're an Office fan, Dwight Schrute talks about Belsnickel
Yes.
in that. So when I was
Yes.
reading it,
It does.
I had a good laugh about this.
Hmm.
He was a masked gift giver who is said to be the first tradition that distinguished between good and bad children. Like Santa, adults would dress up as the Belsnickel character, and children would be allowed to see him the night before Christmas. But of course, the story said that he would drag naughty children out of their beds and make them dance or sing to redeem themselves. Also, he's dressed up like, I don't even know what I would consider what he looks like. It's terrifying. It's like a goblin creature.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
yeah, he snatches kids out of their beds, and
Yep.
that's what they do. This one comes from just Eastern Europe. It didn't specify.
Mm.
The stories are told to the children about Frau Perchta, or the Christmas witch. And she had two faces. One was nice, one was scary. So she showed her nice face to nice children, scary face to bad children.
Mm.
She came into the homes of children on the 12th night of Christmas, which I guess would be Christmas Eve night, right?
Well,
Leaves a piece, or Christmas night,
the 12th depends on your culture because some start on
I
Christmas and
suppose.
go 12 nights into the Epiphany. But
Fair,
but
fair.
we're in the right season.
Right, right. It's a Christmas sometime.
Yeah.
She would leave pieces of silver in the shoes of nice children, so that's nice. But
Mm.
leave it to Becky to creep everyone out. I know, I'm sorry. For the bad children, she slits open their bellies and takes out their organs and replaces them with pebbles and straws. What?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yes.
In Guatemala, Christmas is obviously a religious holiday, but they like to take it one step further. On December 7th, they take part of a festival or an event called, and I don't know Spanish, La Quema del Diablo, or burning the devil. So families get together outside of their houses and burn flaming effigies of the devil as a way to cleanse their home of the evil spirit. So everyone's outside their home with a little statue of Satan and they are burning it.
Right. Okay.
That sounds more like a ritual than
Mhm.
like
I
cleansing of anything.
I wonder.
Ron's
I'm thinking how many houses burned down accidentally in this,
right.
right? I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
this can't be a good
And
thing.
then they'd be like, it's the act of the devil.
Yeah.
So Ron wants to know what's wrong with people slitting open stomachs. I know. And
I know.
then pulling out all their organs and filling it with pebbles. I guess if there's one way to like scare your kid into acting well, it's
Yeah.
that you're going to be disemboweled.
Hmm.
I don't know. I should try that with my kids, see if that works. Okay. In South Africa, it wouldn't work, by the way. My kids would see right through that.
They'll call your
In
bluff.
South, they would for sure. In South Africa, families leave out cookies just like here.
Okay.
They leave them for Santa Claus, but apparently the kids kept eating them. So now parents tell the children the story of Danny, who was a boy who tried to eat Santa's cookies. He was caught by his grandmother, so she killed him. Now Danny's ghost haunts the homes of naughty children at Christmas time.
Okay.
Danny, Christmas Danny.
Seems a bit much for
It's a bit much. Yeah,
stealing
it
cookies,
does.
but yeah. All
It
right.
does. I'm sure you know this one. It's about Krampus. That seems
Oh,
to be like
yes,
a
absolutely.
fairly common. There are scary
Yes.
movies about Krampus. It
Yep.
says that he's a horned beast who kidnaps children,
Yep.
which is obviously as festive as you can get.
Yeah.
It says that the Alpine folklore tells of this Santa's evil counterpart, basically.
Yeah.
He's a chain dragging, birch wielding, child kidnapping half goat monster. So, I mean, isn't the goat kind of a representation of the devil as well? So, I
Many
mean, they've
times,
made
yes.
it like
Hmm.
real horrifying.
Sure.
On the 5th of December, that's called Krampusnacht, so Night of Krampus, basically. It's a holiday that's still observed in a lot of European countries. Krampus storms, actually, Krampuses, plural, storm through alpine towns in evil costumes, looking to get drunk and rowdy and just ruining property. So,
Mm.
Krampus.
Krampus. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, I was mentioning, I was asking you either online or offline if you had ever heard or watched the detective show Murdoch. But there
Right.
was an
Yes.
episode where the papers in Toronto are saying Krampus is running wild around
Oh,
Toronto,
no.
and Murdoch, who is founded in science and reason,
Right.
is very frustrated by the foolishness of the police force, and he's joked, "There is no Krampus," and I am laughing my butt off at this. But
That's
yeah,
funny.
Krampus is a big part of our current culture for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
is. I always thought it was a joke. I didn't know that people actually believed it. I thought it was just like someone's take on a scary movie, but no, this is something that goes
yeah,
way back, hundreds of
mhm,
years.
yeah.
Um, this one is interesting. So you know the song "Good King Wenceslas," the
Yes.
Christmas Carol?
Hmm.
Well, it was actually based on a real person, and it says that the song itself has a wholesome message. However, this Wenceslas, he was the Duke of Bohemia, born in 907 AD. He actually had a very gruesome death. So on the 28th of September in 935, so he's not even old, he's like 27 years old. His brother Boleslaus, he was tired of sharing the country with Wenceslaus, and he plotted his demise. So him and a couple of noblemen went into the church as Wenceslaus was praying and stabbed and lanced him and dismembered him in front of the holy building. And this is where we get that sweet Christmas song.
Christmas Carol. Yeah, yeah.
Just don't
The
understand it.
Middle Ages was not for the faint of heart. No.
No, certainly not. No, today's folk couldn't handle the Middle
No,
Ages, that's for
no.
sure.
Mm-mm.
All right, I've got one last little tradition here, and
Okay.
this one is so tame in comparison. You know, when you decorate your tree, and you can see on the tree here, there's those little balls,
Yeah.
baubles. or
Yeah.
they call them.
Yeah, sure.
So, or Yule balls or fairy balls. So they are, shiny. They're filled with thread or glass originally. They came to the US in the 17th century via England, I guess. They were designed to entrap evil spirits, and some say that that's where the bubbles come from, that
Oh,
tradition.
interesting.
Yeah,
So
very.
when you break one, uh-oh, people
Yeah,
should,
exactly. If one
uh-oh,
falls off, you are probably being haunted.
okay, yikes. I
Yeah.
will be extra careful this year.
Yes,
I
exactly.
love it. You
So
covered
yeah,
a lot.
that is
You covered a
yeah,
lot.
and there was so many, and I just screenshotted the particularly weird ones, but a
Yeah,
lot of them had to do with, the witch that came in. Like it was saying like goblins, witches, not just Santa, like a bunch of demonic things come through your chimney to steal children and stuff like that. So it seems to be a fairly common theme. And I wonder, like going back, if every culture has the same kind of story, maybe it was actually something that they were seeing and not just something they were saying. I don't know.
well, something saying maybe something, certainly something they were fearing. The human condition is such
Yeah.
that across cultures, we have these collective kind of anxieties, and they manifest
Yes.
differently in the cultures, but you see the
Totally.
through line, for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's interesting how, look, today, well, let's just take Krampus. It's, we know a lot of people know because someone made a movie, but they made the movie because they
Mhm.
had heard the legends like you. Someone came across, look at these creepy Christmas stories. And
Yeah.
they're good. Here's the thing, they're good stories. Okay. And
Mhm.
that, and if done well, it could be fodder for a good short story, a good
Of
movie,
course.
whatever. And so, but that's not where they began. But they come from maybe this collective subconscious
Mhm.
experiences throughout the land. But
Right.
mm,
Well, even the gingerbread house here, it comes from the Hansel and Gretel story
sure.
where a cannibalistic witch, this is what her house is. So like, I don't know, why is this a sign of Christmas now? Why do we use that? But anyway,
Nothing says Merry Christmas more like a cannibalistic witch. You know.
exactly. Eating children. That's right,
Yeah.
because they're bad. They didn't
Yes.
listen. So I don't know. That's creepy
Uh,
Christmas for you. Take us into something maybe a little lighter.
Less creepy.
Maybe.
Well, I
Hopefully. Less
want to talk
creepy.
about
Yeah.
some. I don't live in New York, but I'm close enough to the city. I can get down there,
Oh,
by driving
look what I
down.
got on today.
Oh, look at that! Bravo! Is
Yeah,
that the New York
Yankees.
Yankees logo
It is.
underneath?
Yeah,
Okay,
and it's bedazzled.
I love it. I love it. Ron's going to be very upset, but I am very
You're
happy.
right.
So there we. So I live close to the city. I can get down pretty easily. There's a lot
Nice.
to do year round.
I
And
bet.
this past a Saturday, we went down to the New York Philharmonic because they were doing they were showing a film. And for the
Cool.
last 5, maybe 10 years now, symphonic orchestras around the country have been showing movies on a giant screen and then performing the score to the
Oh,
movie live.
cool. They do
And
that here too. Love
yeah,
that.
it is just wonderful. I have not seen enough of these. And after this Saturday, I said, I don't want to go to the movies again unless it's on a big screen with an orchestra playing. I
Right.
don't care what the movie is. But we saw Elf. And
Oh, I love that.
I like Elf well enough. I do. I don't.
Yes.
It's not quite Home Alone status for me, but I like it
Fair.
well enough. And there's a lot to like there, truth be told. And that's what the Philharmonic was doing this year. In past, they've done Home Alone. I did not get to see it. I was very
We
disappointed.
had the Home Alone one come here also,
If you
and it
can,
was expensive.
yeah, but I would probably say maybe worth every penny, but because that music is really exquisite. But we look, that's what we had tickets for. We went to see Elf, and I loved it. I am so glad we did this, and I never enjoyed the movie more. And
Oh,
I really drilled into the music, and it was excellent. It was excellent. The orchestra was in fine shape, and they were having a lot of fun performing it.
love
And
it.
seeing it on the big screen, with the scenes, if you remember, where Santa Claus is trying to escape Central Park and he's
Mhm.
trying to gin up the motor, and it was on a
Right.
big screen as opposed to even a big TV. It was just spectacular, and with that orchestra just performing so richly, so virtuosically, it was a great time. So I went with my wife. Our daughter was in town, so she came with us, and one of our cousins came, and
Mm.
we had so much fun. And I said, this was for me like going to Radio City Music Hall back in the day
Yes.
when I was a kid. not only did they have the Christmas spectacular, but you also got to see a movie with it. And at
Mhm.
Christmas, it was usually something, released at that time because it keyed into the holiday for some
Right.
reason or another. And I missed the movie. So all this is to say, there's New York, look, Rockefeller Center with the tree, St.
Right.
Patrick's Cathedral, looking out the windows on Fifth Avenue. That's all well and good. And I'm not knocking it. That's there. But if you're in New York and you want to do something a little different, you know, see what movie at Christmas time the symphony is
Mhm.
showing, and check that out because it really was splendid. There were people there. I mean, there were kids there with their family, and for many of them, that was their introduction to the orchestra, and they all went away feeling like I can't wait to do this again. And
Yes.
so that was great. And Lincoln Center was decorated. All the theaters there were looking beautiful. The New York City Ballet was across the way doing the Nutcracker, and you could see how festive the lobby looked for that theater. And so it was a great time to be out. But so
Mhm.
other necessarily non-traditional or esoteric things to do. Um, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, every year right after Thanksgiving, they put a giant Christmas tree in their medieval section, and it is
Cool.
decorated by terracotta angels from Naples,
Oh,
and
whoa.
they date back to I think the late 18th century, and
Cool.
it's just a beautiful. It's not a real tree, but it's artfully crafted, and these angels are
Mhm.
beautiful. But at the base of the tree, and this is a very Italian thing, there is a perceptio, which is the what we call the manger scene of the birth of Jesus in the stable with his parents and the animals and the shepherds and whatnot. And Italians are big on this,
Mhm.
and they go all out so that you will in some families there will be the manger with the Christ child and his family, but then there'll be villagers and
Mhm.
homes and musicians and the shepherds will have not just one sheep, but there'll be a flock of sheep and goats
Wow.
and dogs and people doing laundry by the water mill, and the three wise men who are coming. It's not just the three kings, but it's their whole entourage, and it can be quite elaborate. You can imagine at the Metropolitan Museum of Art how elaborate this gets. It is huge. The pieces are
I
about
bet.
yay high, also from Naples, from the late 18th century, early 19th century, and it's basically the Christ child and his family and the shepherds, but also a Neapolitan village recreated there at the foot of this tree, with medieval Christmas music playing softly, so it's not intrusive, but it adds an air of serenity, and it is so lovely. And it's just there. It can get crowded, but once you're there, take your time, move around, look at all the different scenarios that are there, all
I
the
love
media
this.
pieces, and I love doing that too. And if you're in that room, someplace on one of the pillars, there is a wood relief of Saint Nicholas, nominally one of the people, historic and or mythic people who Santa Claus was sort of crafted from. It
Mhm.
is a relief of Saint Nicholas, with three boys, and it reflects a story that Saint Nicholas was on his way to the Nicene Council, and en route there, he's walking through what was ostensibly, I think, Turkey, and there was hard times, there was drought, there was famine, but he was staying at an inn, and the innkeeper was honored to have Bishop Nicholas there. At the time,
Mm.
he was not a saint, but he was a bishop and a bit of a celebrity. The Bishop Nicholas was celebrity of the day, so he
Mega
felt
church pastor
yes,
of today.
okay. He needed to. The innkeeper felt compelled to provide him with something special to eat. And this is another grisly Christmas story. Ties in well
Oh,
with.
perfect.
So what the innkeeper did was he took three lads from the town and he basically killed them, and he was brining them in in barrels to be nice and moist and he was going to serve a pot roast to the Bishop Nicholas, but it was these boys.
Boiled
And
pot roast.
yes,
Ugh.
so Bishop Nicholas gets there and he is suspicious that how do you have meat for a pot roast? So he
During
goes into
famine?
the larder and he finds the boys, briny,
No.
and
Oh,
what he does is he pulls them out and through the power of the Holy Spirit breathes life into them and he rises
wow.
them from the dead. And so there was a relief of that story in
Oh
the
my
same way
gosh.
the Christmas tree. So there's a little creepy Christmas, but it ends happy. He resurrects the he resurrects the boys.
Well, I mean,
Well,
at least the boys got to live. I mean, salty. They were
yeah,
salty from here on
yes,
out, but like, hey, they were alive.
they were delicious. No, but they were alive.
Wow.
And, quite a Santa Claus story you didn't know. So all of that is in the medieval
I
room of the
didn't know.
Metropolitan Museum of Art. And
I
if you're
love it.
really ambitious, your ticket for the museum gets you into their other museum way uptown at Fort Tyrant
Okay.
Park called the Cloisters. And the Cloisters are just that. They are a collection of 3 or 4 cloisters from Europe that the Rockefeller family 100 years or so ago purchased and brought over brick by brick to New York and recreated in what is now an extension of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. These are actual
Cool.
buildings reshaped here in New York of old cloisters and filled with medieval artwork. And
Mm.
it is decorated for Christmas. And there's all sorts of programs on what winter plants were used to celebrate the holiday in the Middle Ages. And they'll look in celebrations of the Roman Saturnalia, of which there is a link to that, to the way we celebrate Christmas today. There's also programs on how Hanukkah was celebrated in medieval
Oh,
times.
cool.
So for the price of one admission, you get both
I love
museums.
it.
There we go.
That's cool.
So that's a little Christmas in New York, in addition to Fifth Avenue and the windows and the tree at Rockefeller Center. There's a lot of cool things to do.
Yes. That sounds amazing. I love that. I love history. I love arts. I think like if I would ever come to New York, you're the tour guide
Oh,
because you
please!
know all the arts and culture.
If I would be honored if you and your family come to New York anytime, let us know, and I'll clear out a couple of days, and
Amazing.
I'll do a couple stuff, and then let you guys go on your own too. But I'll give you some pinpoints, and I would be honored to show you the Museum of Art and the cloisters.
I
So,
love it.
all
That's right
right.
up my alley. That's amazing. I see Ron here. He is telling us that these are not happy stories today. We're supposed to be spreading joy on
Hey,
this two
Saint
days before
Nicholas
Christmas.
resuscitated these children, raised them from the dead. That's a happy ending.
Listen, Ron, history is not always joyful.
It is
There's a
not.
lot of really dark stuff in history, especially medieval times.
Yeah, yeah, all true.
So, we're just saying it. We don't want to erase history. That's a today
No,
move. We're not doing
no,
that.
no. Lean into it. There are lessons to
Lean
be learned.
into it. Exactly. A lot of lessons to be learned. Don't eat children. Don't brine them.
Right.
Don't
Don't
cut
bring
open their
them.
bellies. Don't disembowel babies. It's fine. So
Great stuff.
let's transition here into my segment about why I think the ocean is terrifying. Again, these are not happy Christmas stories, but I think it's cool because the ocean is full of all kinds of weirdness. And today I found something about the vampire squid. Oh my gosh, Ron, this must be the graphic he was talking about.
I
I
love
love
it.
this.
The
This
Vampire
is
Squid with the
absolutely
Santa
adorable.
Claus hat. That is awesome.
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna change my background too. So here he is, right here,
Mhm.
the vampire squid. I've just been looking up different sea creatures that I thought were weird and cool and fascinating, and this guy made it today. So here we are. So the vampire squid is neither vampire nor squid. He
Okay.
is just a type of cephalopod. He's found super deep sea. He is the only surviving species in the own order known as, and I don't even know how to say this, Vampyromorphida. Okay. He does resemble an octopus. Yeah. He does resemble an octopus. He has 8 tentacles, but they have these web things in between them. So he kind of looks more like I don't know, like a duck's foot or something.
Yes. Yes.
It's said that its scientific name, the Vampirotyphus infernalis, means the vampire squid from hell. But it's misleading because he doesn't feed on blood, and it was just inspired by its dark cloak-like webbing. So he's actually a nice little guy.
Yeah.
So just a couple things about him. He only lives to be about 8 years, which I expected a lot more because most cephalopods have quite a long lifespan, I
Yeah.
think. He only gets to be 1 foot, so 12 inches, 30 centimeters, and only 450 grams. So he's not a big guy by any means.
Mm.
His top speed is 2 miles an hour or 3 kilometers an hour. And
Oh,
there's
so about the
only
same as
one
me.
in his species. Danny says we're scaring him. Yeah, if you came for peace and love, this is not it today. Okay, but let's get into facts about him because he is kind of cool. So they can live in suffocating oxygen saturations as low as 3%.
Interesting.
Like, yeah, there's obviously like not a lot of oxygen way down at the bottom of the ocean. And it's actually in a zone called the oxygen minimum zone. That's an
Mm.
actual thing, the OMZ. It's so low, it can't even support most sea creatures. However, this little guy, he's adapted to his environment. He has a large gill surface area to help maximize oxygen absorption. And he has a slow metabolic rate and an efficient oxygen transport system within the body. So, yeah, 3% oxygen down there,
Mm.
which is pretty crazy. The vampire squid can glow to escape his predators. So his arms and his fins will start to glow. And I guess it freaks out predators and they leave. I'd love to see that.
I
It
would. It
can
would work
turn,
on me. It would definitely work on
yeah,
me.
right. Yeah, well, if I saw this, it would work on me. I don't want anything anywhere near it. But it can actually turn itself inside out to help avoid predators. So their webbed arms turn themselves inside out, enclosing their mantle and helping it to avoid detection and predators. So
Mm.
that's kind of cool. I'd like to see it flipped inside out. Let's see. They have a special sensor that helps their balance. So they have this sensor known as a statocyst, which is fluid and air-filled sac that helps them send messages to their brain to keep their balance in check. So, it's so interesting. All of these
Yeah.
fish that I've done so far are sea creatures. They all have like the most intricate inner workings, which you
Yes.
would never think, right?
They
Like,
have
remember the
adapted
last guy? He could,
beautifully to their
yes,
environments that are hostile
very
to life.
cold,
Every other form.
dark,
Yeah.
oxygenless environment. Yes, that's right. They also have these like sensory filaments. They use like fishing lines. So, they have their 8 arms, but they also have these like two sensory filaments. And I'm guessing that's what this is right here. And it's covered in tiny hairs. They're extremely sensitive to their surroundings, possibly helping them detect food. And they act like mobile spider webs to collect dead sea matter to eat.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have the largest eyes in the animal kingdom proportionally. So,
Mhm.
you know, there's little light down where they are. They have very large eyes to help them absorb as much light as possible. Compared to its body size, it has the largest eyes of any animal on the planet today.
Hmm.
So cool, hey? And they can also look blue or red, but they're actually clear eyes. It just depends on what reflection they're getting from the water around them.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, so this here, it looks like he's got nice blue eyes, but no, he doesn't. And they use jet propulsion. So they emit a jet of water from its mantle, the fin flapping, and web pulses to help them move swiftly through the water. Although in adults, it's just mostly fin flapping. But it can move relatively fast for short periods. Like I said, it got up to 2 miles an hour, which isn't super fast. But when you figure this little guy is about this big and he's just at the bottom of the ocean, 2 miles an hour is pretty fast. But he can't swim for very long. He gets tired. He can go for like really short distances and that's it. They can regrow their limbs. This is why
Oh yeah.
cephalopods I find
Yes.
so fascinating. Like
Hmm.
a friend and I that I used to work with used to joke and say, like, if there was ever going to be a zombie apocalypse, it's not going to be zombies. It's going to be like octopus or like
Yes.
squid, any sort of cephalopod,
Hmm.
because they're
They're already
so
doing
smart.
that. They're already doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so smart. They can get out from like you see those videos of you put a little octopus inside of a closed jar, he can get out of it. You put him outside of a closed jar, he can get into it. He can flatten it, like wild.
Yeah.
But anyway, if it gets
Extraordinary.
caught by a predator, one of its limbs get bitten off, it can actually regrow the limb. And this is obviously a great technique to potentially save their lives. So this is
Yeah.
probably why they've been around for, they say, like 300 million years. I don't know how they know that, but they do. And let's see, I'll just go to the last one here. Yeah, they have the most unlikely reproduction of any cephalopod. So They can reproduce multiple times, which I guess other ones can't do. The male vampire squid will actually transfer its sperm into the female using a part of its body known as the funnel, which is also used for his movement and respiration. So it's like a multi tool.
Okay.
The female then holds on to the sperm until it's time for her to, get pregnant. It's
Hmm.
like she knows when it's optimal for her and then uses it to fertilize her own eggs. The eggs are released into the water little by little. And at this point, the eggs are fairly large, 3 to 4 millimeters, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
And then it says that the female vampire squids go through many reproductive cycles, with the female producing more than one set of eggs in her lifetime. So
Mm.
lots of little guys. This is probably, again, why they've been around for
Yeah.
millions
Yeah.
of years,
Figured
because
it out. Yeah.
they don't just have one cycle and then that's it. It's like multiple. So there's lots of little guys down there. Let's see if there's any. Does it say they have any? I know on this page that I always look at, it always says if people eat them. It does not say that here. So I'm gonna guess that people don't eat these little guys.
So I was going to say they look like our Christmas Eve dinner. That might be one of the courses, but it's probably a different variety.
This is one of your 7 fishes, vampire
Exactly.
squid.
It's a different type of squid for sure, but it looks so
Right.
red and tasty. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. I think on the next show, well, maybe not tomorrow, but I'm gonna do the Dumbo octopus because he's just so cute and so fascinating. So,
Okay.
yeah, this is part of my The Ocean's Weird series,
You would have
vampire squid.
made a fine oceanographer or
Should have made.
biologist, underwater, water biologist or something
Well,
like that.
I feel like when everyone my age was a kid, you get asked what you want to be, marine biologist. What does that even mean? I don't know. We have
But
no water here in Alberta, so I don't know.
that probably heightened the appeal for you because it was the lack
Probably.
of availability. Yeah. Well, the ocean is an unending source of fascinating things,
I know, I
many
love it.
terrifying, many weird, but
Yes.
still, you could do a podcast just on that. You could do, and you can go through a lifetime.
Literally.
Will not cover it all. I love what
Yeah.
you've mined for us, literally from these shows.
Well,
They're
I like this guy with his little hat
Yeah,
here. So
that's
this just
nice.
adds to the appeal.
It's true. It's true. Very festive. Very
Hilarious.
uh,
Okay, so top 5 podcasts for better understanding of everything.
of every.
What does that mean? Of
Well,
everything.
I
Okay.
mean, it covers a lot of ground. And actually, what made me think of this was your discussion on the praying mantis shrimp of last week,
Right.
because
The
there's
rainbow.
yeah, there's one podcast that it's a science podcast that covers everything. But these are, yeah, I listen to a fair amount of podcasts, and some are entertainment driven. But
Mhm.
these five have I learned something every week from them, and have made me. I'm not going to say a smarter person, but a more knowledgeable person.
Mhm.
For sure. So I thought I'd share them. So number
Cool.
5 is Stay Tuned with Preet, and that's hosted by
Mhm.
a man named Preet Bharara, who was a
Okay.
former U.S. attorney from New York Southern District,
Cool.
and he was fired by Donald Trump in the first administration. And the
Mhm.
firing, when new presidents come in, they tend to. This isn't a Trump thing. They tend to say, okay, people appointed to these positions of the previous administration, turn in your resignations. The only thing weird about this was he asked Preet to stay, and then a month later fired him. So, okay, what Preet went and did was he started a podcast, and it's a wonderful show. He breaks down legal topics in the news, and he has wonderful guests. They're leaders in their field, many in the legal field, but there's also other, let's just say, adjacent industries, and these are legal experts, thought leaders, and almost to a person, they are all
Mm.
calm, rational, thoughtful, gentle even. So the conversation is not heated at all. It's
Right.
and
That's nice.
you learn so much about the intricacies of the US legal system, let's say, not just
Mhm.
federal, but also the state. Because sometimes we get frustrated and like, this makes no sense. Why does this happen? Why can't you just do ABC? And that's
Right.
because there's a process in place. And when you go through the process, you sort of see the logic of that process. But at the very least, you go away with an understanding that it's not just people being stupid or people being corrupt, but there is something that in place here. And they offer uh, multiple analysis on different sides, politically, socially, legally, and the discussion is robust, but so it makes you feel good. When you're done with the
Mm,
show with Preet, you walk away feeling like you know something more, and you're not all hyped up, like feeling like the sky is coming down, or that
right.
people you disagree with are evil and have to be stamped out. You're not ginned
Right.
up for a very emotional reaction. So I've learned so much from his show, and he's introduced me to some other great podcasts from some of the guests he's had on. So I love
Cool.
the show, and I'm very glad that he's done it. All right, number four. It's called Maintenance Phase, and
Mean.
hosted
Okay.
by Aubrey Gordon and Michael Hobbs, who are journalists,
Okay.
and their whole podcast is about debunking the junk science behind
Mm,
health fads, wellness scams, and diet. And I'd
cool.
say they meticulously research their subjects, but the two of them are great personalities. They are very entertaining. They are very funny. So I am
Mm,
always laughing when I'm listening to them. But I love when they go through the history of something that's accepted as sort of, well, this is general wisdom of
hmm.
something about weight loss or nutrition, and they go through the history. I'm like, oh wow. So so what we've held dearly, as biological law was sort of invented by by someone 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
Right.
Their podcasts are great fun. I would, for people who want to try them out, go look up the one on the history of the calorie, what it is biologically, how it came
Calorie.
about, and how it was decided. Well, these are how many calories you need, and this is how you lose weight. And you realize so much of it is so arbitrary. And we get
Mm,
hung up on that, very anxious about it, beat ourselves up on something that is almost a construct. All right, so that's fun. They have a great show on Dr. Oz about some of his, well, for want of a better word, scams. And it's not
right.
two people saying, "Well, you're a scam artist." They will document. They'll play his testimony on before Congress on things he was selling on his program that have no biological or health merit whatsoever, and he's forced to admit
Hmm.
much. And it's really interesting. And one of my favorites was they did an episode on the food pyramid. Now I remember as my kids
Right.
were growing up, I got very frustrated by the food pyramid because every so many years the U.S. government sort of redesigns it, and ultimately,
Right.
rather than basing it on good nutritional advice, it's based on keeping a lot of lobbyists happy about the things that they make and sell. And so when the kids were little, they showed me, "Hey, Daddy, we learned about the new food pyramid." I'm looking at it, and all I'm thinking is, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This is not telling me anything. This is not. It's
Yes.
confusing. What does this
Yes.
mean?" Any rate, so years later, my daughter introduced me to this podcast, and she goes, "They did the food pyramid. They sounded just like you."
Oh,
Blah,
I
blah.
love it.
So the food pyramid. So all right, maintenance phase, good fun, and
I'm
one more.
following it now. That sounds awesome.
Oh yeah, you'll learn something about nutrition and whatnot. Okay, so number three, Skeptoid. This is a short form
Skeptoid.
podcast. The other
Okay.
two are long form. And Skeptoid, it's an award-winning science podcast. Brian Dunning is the host, and he just talks
Mhm.
about the science behind popular misinformation and urban legends.
Interesting.
And
I'm
the
gonna follow
episodes are
that
about
one too.
15, 20 minutes long
Cool. Love
and
that.
dedicated to one story. Sometimes he's a little snarky. I don't necessarily mind it, but for those who do, if you can put that aside, the science is really interesting. And
Mm,
again, you walk away learning something. In his approach to a skeptical life, one thing that I found out is in a lot of stories, urban legends, whatnot, when people say, well, there's lots of
mhm.
evidence to support this, in many cases, all the evidence traces back to maybe one story in the newspaper. And when you get to that story, you realize, well, that story was totally fabricated by the author, by the author. But for 100 years, people have been using it as the source, as the main source, as they build on the story. So he gives
Right.
you a process on, look, if you're curious about something, or if you're not trusting, because look, people lie, people make mistakes. So he gives you a process on how to really get to the essence of something.
I'm
So
excited to listen to that one. I
one of
like that kind of snarky,
yes
conspiracy-ish,
stuff. Well, he
but
does.
debunking. That's cool.
Yes, and look, there are tools that we have for people who, want to or curious about how things work or did this really happen. There are tools we can all use, and it makes well, it's a good podcast, and that leads us to the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. And this is unlike the last one. This is long form. This show runs usually over an hour, and it's hosted by four, sometimes five scientists.
Mhm.
Very interesting people. One is Dr. Stephen Novella. He is a neurologist at the Yale University School of Medicine.
Cool.
One of two of his brothers are also co-hosts. They're great too. But then one of the co-hosts is Cara Santa Maria. She is doctor of clinical health psychology. Fascinating media person as well. She has another podcast of her own called Talk Nerdy. Honorable mention to that. But they talk about critical thinking and science literacy, and
Hmm.
their discussions are robust. And there's usually several topics a week covering everything from environmental concerns, space travel,
Wow.
health news, and they break things down into great detail, and you will learn something every week. And in fact, I thought of this podcast because very often they'll talk about zoology. Uh, they'll find they'll do a drill down on some interesting creature in the sea or otherwise. Usually sea creatures
Cool.
are insects, and the things you learn, from these and how people are using them. You study these animals like the praying mantis of last week, where people are doing research for detecting cancer and also building armor.
Yes.
We can learn from nature if we don't exploit it. So Skeptic's Guide to the Universe is terrific. And number one is a show very different from the others. It's called Pivot. It's hosted by Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. It's nominally about financial tech writ large,
Cool.
but it will also delve into business writ large, politics, and they're wonderful hosts. They are very, very smart. They have good chemistry between them. Kara Swisher is an outstanding journalist who's been covering Silicon Valley and the internet since the early days, and she pulls
Cool.
no punches, takes no bull from any person, any man, and is meticulous in her research and her approach. And Scott Galloway is an entrepreneur. He teaches at the NYU School of Business. Very funny. He's if she's the adult in the room, he's the child in the room. But the chemistry between them is very good. But both of them are very smart and caring people. And I'm almost a luddite when it comes to technology, and I've learned a great deal from listening to them. And I've
Cool.
got a much better understanding of the way economics and business works in our country. And I have a lot of fun when I listen to them. So
Love it.
my
I'm
fun.
gonna follow a bunch of them. I can't wait to listen to some of them.
The good stuff. So,
Sounds
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. Ron says, of course, Going On Daily should be the number one podcast on your list, but like
yes,
numbers 2 to 6 should be the ones that you
yeah,
just said.
yeah. Well, no, that goes without saying, right? These are the other the other ones. He's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we've only got a couple minutes left here, so we're going to do one more segment. But of course, in true Becky form, I have to change my background.
Love
There
it.
we go.
You're gonna have to teach me how to do that. Oh, I love it. Muppet Christmas Carol.
I
Yay.
actually don't even know if I'm allowed
Okay.
to do that because of whatever copyright or branding, whatever. That's what I'm doing. I gotta move my computer so that
Okay.
everyone can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so these are fun facts for Muppets Christmas Carol, which is my absolute favorite Christmas movie. I've already watched it twice this year.
Okay.
I just think it's so funny. My ringtone is Muppets Christmas Carol. I love it.
Oh, that's great.
So The Muppets Christmas Carol was the first Muppet movie made without Jim Henson. So he had actually passed away on May 16th of 1990 at only
Okay.
53 years old. That is so young. And
Shouldn't
Muppets
too soon.
Christmas Carol, pardon me?
I'm sorry, too soon. Too soon for him to go. Yeah.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
And but this movie debuted December 11th, 1992, so only 2.5 years later. And it was probably in the works while he died.
Yeah.
It also said that Steve Whitmire, he took over as Kermit the Frog for Henson. The film is also dedicated to Henson and his longtime collaborator, Richard Hunt, who performed like Scooter and Beaker and Statler and the Sweetums. he also passed away in 1992. So, yeah, this is probably an
Ouch.
emotional movie for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It also marked Brian Henson, so Jim Henson's son, his feature directorial debut. So, he was in front of the camera on Sesame Street, I guess, little Brian, but he was performing as a Muppeteer in 1981 at the Great Muppet Caper, and then went on to direct Muppet Treasure Island in 96. So this one was his first directorial debut, and I think he nailed it. I think
Hmm.
he did a great job.
Absolutely.
So, on this movie, Scrooge is, and you can see right here, is
Yeah.
Michael Caine,
Hmm.
the legend Michael Caine. I can't imagine anybody else playing this part. However, George Carlin was actually considered for the role prior, which I don't know, like, I don't think I could picture that. I know he did some kid stuff,
Yeah.
not that he was like super kid friendly in a lot of things, but I know he did do some kid stuff. But it says that, yeah, he had been considered, as well as a couple other English actors who I don't know, so I'm not going to say their names.
Okay.
But they all were turned down, and it was given to Michael Caine, which I think was like perfect casting because he
Hmm.
was like miserable. He looked the part. He was everywhere. My dad always says Michael Caine, the actor, and everything. Yeah. Also, there is a subtle nod to Michael Caine's name in the movie. So I guess his given name is Maurice Micklewhite. I didn't know that.
Ah,
And so if you watch the movie, in the film's finale, there's a shop called Micklewhite's in there. And it was a
nice.
nod to Michael Caine. I know, isn't that awesome?
Homage. Cool.
It says that Michael Caine had to watch his step everywhere because obviously this place was set up for
Yep.
puppeteers.
Yep.
So it was specially built to accommodate, everybody. They call them Muppeteers, but yes, puppeteers. They were elevated to leave room for them to walk around below the London streets. So planks and platforms were put into place. Michael Caine and all the other humans in the movie had to walk on. He said it was very fun, but very tricky.
Oh yeah.
So you can't even tell really. Like
No, well,
they
that's
did a really
that's
good
the magic
job.
of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you would think there'd be spots where you're like, oh, but no. Let's see here. Oh, this one was so interesting. The Ghost of Christmas Past. So she's like a little girl. She's like a ethereal, floating, glowy. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that's the Christmas Past, the one that brings him back to his childhood. To achieve the look, the puppeteers were submerged in a tank of baby oil. So this is obviously where Diddy got his thoughts on. He needed a
No, don't
thousand pounds
sully
of
this. Don't
baby
sully.
oil.
God. Uh,
So it was backed by green screen. It was a pool of baby oil, and it was so expensive to have this tank full of baby oil that they had to switch it to water. Though the rod's puppet glues and paints interacted poorly with the water, they got the shots they needed. So it was probably like a quick couple of scenes with her. Isn't that crazy?
that is dedication. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Dedication. Let's see here. There's a bunch that I'm just not doing. Kermit has a full body stroll at one point. He's dancing and you can see his legs and stuff. I guess it was quite a major production. So to achieve this, of Kermit walking down the snow-covered street with his little tiny Tim on his shoulder, Brian Henson had to employ 10 puppeteers for this scene.
I
A
believe it.
rotating barrel covered in fake snow was positioned beneath his feet to allow for him,
Yeah.
naturally walking. So if you pay close attention, you can see it in action. I've never noticed it. I've watched this movie 100 times. I've never noticed. Obviously, I never knew, but
I'm going to be looking for
behind
that
that,
this week. Absolutely.
right. Yes, there was a blue screen behind it with tons of puppeteers working with the characters' limbs and mouth. And yeah, like that's quite the production.
Yeah.
10 puppeteers to make this scene live. That's wild to me. Okay, and then the last one, it's kind of silly, but I guess people were like outraged at this scene. So in the final feast at Christmas, this is when they're at Bob Cratchit's house and everyone is there all piled into the house. Um, Scrooge's nephew Fred is there, but his wife Clara is not. It said Henson shared that he received letters demanding to know what happened to Fred's better half. People were very angry with Brian Henson. They wanted to know where Clara was in the scene. The simple answer to this is that the actress, whose name was Robin Weaver, she just wasn't available to shoot that day. So it wasn't meant as some sort of hint that he had a poor marriage or anything. She
No,
just
right.
wasn't available that day. They probably thought like nobody's going to notice. It's like the entire cast is
Exactly.
shoved into this tiny house for this turkey scene, but people noticed and they were outraged. So
That's funny.
that is it. Fun facts for Muppets Christmas Carol. There are more, of course. You can Google them and find out all kinds, but I picked out the best ones here.
Those are
Go
great.
watch this movie. It's the best movie.
Michael, you probably know this, but Michael Caine spoke about his approach to it. You can see these interviews on
No,
YouTube anytime. Yeah.
no way.
He said, I decided when I was going to do the film that the secret to it would be that no matter what was going on, I would play Ebenezer Scrooge absolutely straight. No matter, and that's what he did. So with the Muppets were being Muppets, but Michael Caine was performing this as he was doing this with other people, and that there was not,
I
and
love
that's
it.
the anchor of the film right there. He gives it all the credibility you need to withstand the Muppet zaniness, and the whole thing is
Yeah.
just a joyful
Well,
presentation.
I mean, he did a whole mix. He was in comedies, he was in dramas, he was in all of the movies, right? So, but to go into a movie where you're literally talking to a man in a puppet suit,
Yes.
doing this, it would be hard to take it seriously. So the fact that he just like kept that
Yep.
the whole time, that's
Oh yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I
Great
love
film,
it.
great actor,
Yeah,
very talented
great.
people working with the Muppets to this day. To this day,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful collective of artists.
Totally.
Oh
So
yeah,
joyful. I love
yeah.
it. Okay, well, this has been a very interesting show today. We definitely appreciate everyone being here. Danny, you're here. I'm reading your comment. You had cancer from 2010 to 2011. I had cancer last year. Chemotherapy. I had breast cancer. You had non-Hodgkin. So, more power to you. We're happy you're here. Happy you're
Amen. Congratulations.
alive and well. Yes, it is a tough battle. I don't think, before I ever got sick, I had no idea how tough it was. I'd see people with cancer and I'm like, I don't understand. No, it's tough. Mentally, it's very tough. So, we're happy you're here. I would say it's been
Absolutely.
14 years in intermission or in remission. I love that. So congratulations. Check us out tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
going to be four of us here tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. So it's myself and Martin, Kenny and Ron. I have no idea what we're talking about, what the topics are. I don't know if we're going to have topics. It's just going to be us chatting. I really don't know. But join us for that tomorrow. And on Christmas Day, we are going to be here because apparently some of us don't have things to do on Christmas Day. But check out
Right.
Ira and Ron on Christmas morning. So 8 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And we can't wait to. No, wait, I got that wrong. 10 a.m. Eastern
Hey,
Time,
Eastern
8
time.
a.m.
Yeah,
Mountain
Mountain
Time.
Time. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, we will see you tomorrow.
Okay. Take care, Becky. See you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye.